for Naira redesign policy and drive towards a cashless society are both admirable ideas, which any deep-thinking Nigerian should endorse. In Nigeria's history, this is the third time that a new currency notes will be issued, but this is the first time customers suffered so much hardship. Nigerians with millions of deposits in the banks were almost turned into active beggars for cash as the situation had dipped into the fabric of the already ailing economy. The social and financial contracts binding bankers and clients was shredded by the Central Bank of Nigeria. But unlike previous exercises which aim to bring a lot of money in circulation being hoarded into the banking system, and the theory reduced interest rates in the current currency change, also aimed at punishing bandits, kidnappers, and corrupt individuals. But let's move away from that and x-ray Nigeria's banking sector's performance and prospects and challenges under this new dispensational, this new instituted initiative. The Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, joins me now via Zoom to look at this from Abuja. Dr. Ikechukwu, thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Otolu.
Yes.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, I know we've looked at different angles of this story, but today I'm going to ask you, many are worried. The banks say they are doing more of withdrawals and not getting more of deposits. You are in the financial institution space. Does this worry you in any form?
Not completely, because there are many ways transactions can take place, either through cash or through transfers. Yes, of course, it has put a lot of banks under serious pressures. A lot of people are coming to make requests for cash. Banks are not able to meet this demand for cash. So it puts them under pressure. If you have ever attempted to enter any of the banks recently, you see that all the staff of banks are under serious pressures. And people shout in banking halls because their requests are not being met. People stand in queues for a long time because their requests are not being met. So banks are under serious pressures, and this is just as a result of the sudden change of this currency. We know that this could have been done better. This could have been well articulated and well executed. But we didn't see that articulation. We didn't see that execution. That's why the pressure is there. And of course, if that execution was well done, I'm sure the issues of going to court or Supreme Court wouldn't have arisen, because those things happened just because people started suffering tremendously in the process of having access to their monies. So these were the things that actually caused this. The banks are under pressure. I can agree with you that people transfer monies into banks and then they expect cash withdrawals for one thing or the other. The banks are not able to give them, so they're also forced to transfer to another account, and the people want to withdraw, they can't access them. So you see that banks are always having need to have to go and collect cash from CBN or any other source from other banks if need be. But of course, within this circumstance, no bank will have enough. So they always go to CBN as where they have accounts. So I know banks are under pressure, but you see, the resilience of Nigerians will always make it possible for us to succeed, make it possible to withstand this kind of pressure that may come to banks and the pressure that may be coming to individuals. Everybody's under pressure. But of course, you know, gradually the pressure is easing out, and people are beginning to have access to some funds, some kinds of cash. But it could have been better executed. It could have been better executed if it was well articulated.
Now let's talk about other issues that banks face at the moment, two in particular: interest rate hikes and the US dollar shortages. How do you also see this affecting their performance in the year?
Yes, you see, when you see inflation rates rising, there are a whole lot of things that are responsible for this. The shortage, obviously, I listened to an exporter of items, you know, who came to my office recently and talked about the fact that when he exports, he gets his money through the window of CBN, and he is giving his money at the exchange rate that's far lower than the parallel market exchange rate. And but when he wants to import some of the items, he will be made to struggle to buy through the parallel market because he won't have access to foreign currency to import his items. So these are the distortions we have in the system. When your money comes in, it comes in at a rate around 400 naira per dollar. But when you want to import items, you are forced to pay from the open market, through the bureau de change, and then you pay as high as 700 and over 700 naira per dollar. So these distortions are going on, and you don't have enough of it to meet the demand of importers. Of course, there are so many importers who really want as much as they want for their business, but they cannot get it. So we need to identify those things that have actually made it so difficult for foreign currency to be available. Encourage exports. Encourage exports and do more of have all the make exports to be so seamless. Make exports to be very attractive. Then you see more and more people go there, and more people want to be happy doing exports so that they can have good value for the money they are getting from their exports. We'll do everything to encourage exports. That is actually what we need to continue to do. And if we do that over the years, we're going to have the ease of this particular thing. Otherwise, it's affecting interest rates. You see that a lot of banks take money from depositors at high rates, and then they want to give it out also at high rates. You also know that the monetary policy rate is high enough, and so no bank will want to give out any rate money less than the monetary policy rate. And we need to ensure that while we're trying to stabilize the system, the financial system, we also need to look at businesses of entrepreneurs, because you need to be very strong now to do business in Nigeria, because a lot of factors to deal with. While we're talking about these factors, I'm sure you also know that these same multiple taxation that we have always talked about still remains. Nobody has addressed them. If you are in a place like Abuja, for example, Tolu, you will struggle to do business because of the kind of notifications for payments that will come from the area council, a lot of them from area council. You know the number. People come and they tell you the number of taxes they pay. Of course, not talking about the FIRS and FCT IRS ones. It's difficult to do business in Nigeria. We need to make it better, honestly, and make it seamless.
Indeed. While we commend government for some of the acts now, bills being signed into law, many are commending that most of them are focused on making the business environment, I beg your pardon, more easy. But let me ask you this question. When we talk about capital and liquidity, which we expect the banks should have at the moment, many are scared that the springing up of all of these online digital banking platforms might also be a threat on our banking system. How is that coming to you?
I can tell you there are no threats to the banking system because they operate at their various capacities and operate at their various platforms. To also tell you that all the banks, most of the banks also have the kind of lending platforms that these online systems have. Whereas the banks can give out loans, up to 1 million, 2 million, 20 million, 100 million. The platforms online they are just concentrating around the 100,000, 500,000 levels. So they are operating at their level and operating at their platform. The banks also have their capacity. They are not in any competition, I can tell you. And when you also talk about the default rates that the online systems are having is high and huge because these are they're lending to people they don't have any idea about it. They don't have any KYC around. Banks can only lend to people they have done some due diligence around and they know a little more. And they're not taking the business from the regulated banks as a matter of fact.
Well, when we talk banks again, let's go to risk management. Many will tell you that some banks will tell you, we can't lend to this sector. It is very risky, like the farming, agricultural space and all of that. What is your take with regards to risk management with banks in Nigeria?
Yeah, first of all, I can tell you that one of the things people complain about banks is that they only go to where the risk is low, and they don't want to delve into areas to really find out why the risk in those areas are high and find mitigants in those areas. You have heard a lot of innovators who say the banks didn't believe in them and didn't want to give them money because they were just starting their business. And only when they started succeeding, all banks will come to them. So that's to tell you that banks like going to where the risks are reduced. We see the same thing happening with insurance companies. Insurance will not want to. That's why if they want to do life assurance of somebody up to 70 years, they will tell you they're not going to insure the person because they think somebody who has reached 70 years is close to dying and things like that. So we have to be looking at, trying to see what mitigants we can have in various sectors, in various areas of banking or insurance. The risk, when you identify a risk, agriculture has been having this problem of low patronage from banks when it has to do with risk appetite. It's been there for such a long time. That's why government decided to establish an institution called NISEL, which we know about. That is why we have agricultural bank, agri bank that is existing somewhere, even though I don't know the impact they are having in the system. A lot of banks shy away from the risks arising from agri because they can tell you it's speculative. It's speculative because you don't know when there's going to be flood. You don't know when there will be pests that will take over. You don't know when the birds in the poultry will just all die. So because there is high risk in those areas, banks do not want to get into them. The next problem I see around banks when I get into them is because they don't have enough expertise in those areas. Banks will hire accountants and hire people who study finance or economics. They refuse to, they don't know they need to actually go and hire people who are experts in certain areas of agriculture and create departments in those areas, people who can really supervise agricultural projects. So if you don't have expertise, the next thing that will happen is that when requests come from those areas, you want to decline them because you don't have the expertise to deal with those credit facilities. There are facilities that come in the form of probably export of oil and gas products. When the banks don't have competence in these areas, they will decline these facilities. But if you really want to do well in certain sectors of the economy, hire people and make them heads and create such departments so that the people will have such expertise to deal with those. Otherwise, every sector deserves the kind of attention other sectors have in terms of risk appetite and in terms of lending. All banks need to do is just to go and hire the right people to man those areas.
Great stuff. Doc, before I let you go now, what are your expectations for their financials? Yes, we've seen some come out. Some say it's not so impressive considering the challenges, though we still see a lot of profit all around the banking space. What are your expectations and what's your outlook for the entire banking space this year?
Banks in Nigeria have a different shockers. They have buffers, different buffers as against the banks outside the country. You and I look at your alert system, you see stamp duties, you see all kinds of charges. If an average commercial bank or deposit money bank in Nigeria relies on all those debits from customers' accounts, they're enough to make them make profit. You know that even when the global system is suffering, the banks are suffering. That's why we have seen a lot of banks collapse in the Western world. Nigerian banks are still posting profits that are far more than expectation because there are various charges. And because you don't want to stress yourself going back to the bank to say, what are these charges all about? You don't want to go to court. You don't want to go to court because the judicial system is very frustrating. You want to just live with those costs and live with those charges. Otherwise, the banks are doing well. They are doing very well. I know, yes, they may have some liquidity issues. I don't know, but because of this Naira design, but the CBN is there to actually deal with, handle their problems. But for profitability, the banks are doing very well, and their profitability levels are rising up in spite of all the challenges that we call challenges. That they are really insulated from all those challenges.
Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu there. Thank you so much. We had the best of the interview today. Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. Also a top member of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much. Do have a great week.
Thank you very much, Tolu. Thank you. I appreciate it.